All right, let's begin our presentation. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Sociolinguistic Group 5, and we want to present our material about language variation. Our group consists of Fahmi, Bayu, Anugrah, Reshintya, Kurnia, Wulandari, and me, Nurul, Rizky, Fadlilah. All right, let's go to the next slide. And what is variation in language? Language variation are divided into two views, namely, one, language variation as a result of social diversity and the diversity of language functions, and two, language variation as a means of interaction in diverse community activities. According to the Hartman and Stork in 1972, a language variation is divided into three criteria, namely, one, geographical and social background of the speaker, two, medium that is being used, and three, the topic of the conversation. And now we head to the regional variation. What is regional variation? Dialect geography has employed assumptions and methods drawn from the historical linguistics, and the results have been used to confirm historical findings such as archaeological findings, population studies, and written records. Okay, now dialects essentially created because of the language differentiation caused by the speaker moving away over time and space over and over around the year until right now. Over sufficient time, the resulting dialects become new languages and speakers of the resulting varieties become unintelligible to the one another. So if we can take the example, Latin became French in France, Spanish in Spain, Italian in Italy, and so on and so on. Waldorf, 2006. And regional dialects. What is the meaning of regional dialects? Regional dialects is actually variation in speaking a language that associated with a place. Okay, it is a language that is related to the place that the people are staying, maybe, and it's easy way to observing the language variation. And next, the traditional model of linguistic change. First is a family tree. For example, Latin has branched into French, that I said before, Spanish, and Italian. And the second, the phonemic split or coalescence. For example, E sounds and E spellings as in the bit and beat. Once designated different pronunciations. And the third, integral reconstructions. For example, though mouse and mice now have different vowel sound, but it means the same thing. The same thing like mouse is a ticus and mice is a ticus also. Okay, next slide will be explained by Fahmi. Fahmi, the time is yours.
Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, clearly.
So I'm sorry, I cannot turn my cameras on because there's problems. So it is about the Dialect Atlas. It is actually a map that shows the geographical boundaries of the distribution of a particular linguistic feature by drawing a line on a map. So basically, as you can see, there's southern and western, and then also like midline and several parts in the United States. And basically every part here has like, their own dialects or some difference in English, but they probably like could understand each other when they communicate. Next, please. Thank you. So there's a isogloss. Isogloss is actually a line on a map. Like before, there's like a line. It is like enclosing an area within which particular linguistic feature is found, and it is a line in Dialect Atlas which shows differences on one side of the line. People say something one way, and there's also like a part of it like the isophone, which is a feature of pronunciation, isolex, which is item of vocabulary, and isoseme, which is particular word of meaning. Rizky, can you get back to the previous slide, please? So as we know that not all people who speak a language speak in the same way. So a language can be subdivided into any number of dialects, which each vary in some way from the like a parent language, and then the term accent is often like incorrectly used in several places. For example, like the general northern, as you can see, the red one maybe about the round red one, where the dialect there is sometimes also referred to a general American, and it's used in almost 2/3 of the country. And then there's also like a Western dialects. As you can see, the west part is compared with the Eastern United States. The Western regions were settled to recently for very distinctive dialects to have time to develop or to be studied in detail, because actually many words originally came from Spanish, and then like even some from the languages from the Native Americans. And then also like a general southern south part, the dialect region also along with South Midland like matches the border of the Confederate states that seceded during the Confederate War, and it's still a culturally distinct region of the United States, since it was like largely agricultural area. So like finally, as the result, the sub-dialects are much less uniform than those of the general northern regions and have much more like clearly defined boundaries. And then you can see in the middle, it's the Midland. For a long time, like the North Midland and South Midland dialect were considered to be part of the southern, northern and southern dialect regions respectively, and served as transition zone between them. So in recent decades, mainstream thought has begun to consider them to be a distinct dialect region. Next, please. Next. Thank you. So there's also relic area. It is an area whose dialect has exerted influence on the dialects of surroundings area, as reflected in a set of isoglosses, more or less concentrically surrounding it. And then next, there's a focal area. It is an area isolated from influences of any focal area and preserving other linguistic forms that have been lost in other regions. Then also transition area, and it is an area whose dialect has been influenced by the dialect of one or more neighboring focal areas. And next will be described or discussed by Reshintya Wulandari. Reshin, take your time.
Okay, for the next slide is the linguistic variable. Linguistic variable is a linguistic item which has identifiable variants. For example, words like singing and fishing are sometimes pronounced as singing or fishing. Next. According to Labov, choose 5 phonological variables. the th variable, the initial consonant in words like thin or tree, the dh variable, the initial consonant in words like there and then, the r variable, r pronunciation in words like from and far, the a variable, the pronunciation of the vowel in words like bed and back, the o variable, the pronunciation of the vowel in words like dog and cook. Next. Then the important fact to remember is that a linguistic variable is an item in the structure of a language, an item that has alternate realization as one speaker realizes it one way and another a different way, or the same speaker realizes it differently on different occasions. Next. Linguistic and social variation. According to Lure, variation in language as a sociolinguistic phenomenon may depend on different factors. Social variation studies developed from traditional dialectology when scientists understood the complexity of language variation. It concentrates on a certain social variable and identify its variants which appear to promote the usage of a certain variant of a linguistic variable instead of another. The choices among the variants of a linguistic variable are influenced by both social and linguistic forces. Next. Gompers in 1958 saw some of the intricacies involved in trying to relate linguistic variations to the social variation and show how rather small differences in speech can effectively distinguish subgroups in society from one another in study of linguistic usage in the village of Kalapur, 80 miles north of Delhi in India. And so far as language is concerned, certain characteristics of the Kalapur village dialect are clear marks of social group membership. Then next. Once a linguistic variable has been identified, the next issue becomes that of collecting data concerning its variant such a way that we can draw certain conclusion about the social distribution of these variants. To draw such conclusions, we must be able to relate the variants in some way to quantifiable factors in society. And the next slide will be explained with Fahmi. Fahmi, time is yours.
Thank you. Now it's a data collection. So the data collection and analysis. The first one is wait a minute. Data collection itself. Wait. Okay. The first one is the observer's paradox. It is by hidden cameras and the sound recorders. And then there's also like the social linguistics interview, a casual interview, which ideally resemble a conversation more than a formal question and answer question. And then there's also like a sampling. It is like the best sample of all is the random sample, which is random sample. Random sample everyone in the in the population to be sampled as an equal chance to be selected. So there's also in contrast in judgment known as the quota sample. So here the investigator chooses the subject according to a set of criteria, like for example, like the age, gender, social class, education, and so on. Next, please. Thank you. There's also a parent time and the real time. It is a time dimension. And then the correlations, dependent and independent variable. is to see what happens to a language when look at in a relation to some factor that we can manipulate. The independent variable, for example, like social class, age, gender, ethnicities, and so on, as one of these changes. And then there's also quantitative social linguistics. It is where the investigators must be prepared to employ proper statistical procedures, not only in their sampling, but also in the treatment of the data they collect and in testing the various hypotheses they formulate. Next, please. So the conclusion. We can conclude that from the previous discussion that language variation is systematic differences on how one language is used by different speakers of language, including with the regional variable, the linguistics variable and social variable that affect those languages. So I think that's all. Back to you, Rizky.
All right. Now we open for 3 questions from all of you guys, and so please ask. Hello.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So, based on the Dialect Atlas, could you give me a specific differentiation of dialects such as pronunciation and word in the US? Thank you.
Okay. Another one. Nurina has raised hands. Go on.
Okay, so I want to ask an example of quantifiable factors in society. And also, is there any different skills for classifying people within a social system? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another more. One question more. Is there?
Donan raised his hand.
Donan? Nunggu.
Okay, so my question is that accent part of the regional variation? Okay, that's my question. Okay, thank you.
We'll take a time, maybe 5 until 10 minutes to answer. Okay? Please kindly wait. Okay. Resin want to answer the question from Nurina. Resin, the time is yours.
Okay, I want to answer Nurina's question. Nurina asks, could you give an example of quantifiable factors in society, and is there any different scales of classifying people within a social system? So, quantifiable factors in society is social class, membership, gender, age, ethnicity, and so on. Relating them to factors such as race and ethnicity is somewhat more troublesome since these are much more subjective in nature and less easily quantifiable, but the most complicated factor of all is social class membership. An occupational scale may divide people into a number of categories as follows: mayor professionals and executive of large business, leisure professionals and executive of medium-sized business, semi-professionals and technicians and owners of small business, skilled workers, semi-skilled workers, and unskilled workers. An educational scale may employ the following categories: graduate or professional educators, college or university degree, attendance at college or university but not degree, high school graduation, some high school education, and less than 7 years of formal education. Nurina, that's enough for the answer.
Yes, Resin, it's clear enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next question will be answered by me. I will answer the question from Donan Devullah with the question like, is that accent is part of language variation? The answer is yes, it is. The accent is actually part of language variation, or more specifically, accent is a part of dialect. Jadi aksen itu merupakan pembangkit dari suatu dialek yang ada di setiap daerah. Jadi perbedaannya antara dialek dengan aksen itu hanya bagaimana pengucapan suatu kata atau how to pronounce words. And the dialect is actually not only the pronunciation actually, but also one's general vocabulary and grammar. Jadi berkaitan dengan vocabulary dan grammar. Jadi bukan hanya pronunciation aja yang beda, tapi juga vocabulary dan grammar. Gitu. Untuk contohnya bisa kita lihat misalkan di UK gitu, UK dan US itu agak berbeda dari segi pengucapan suatu kata, dan bahkan ada vocabulary, ada kata-kata yang sebenarnya berbeda tapi maknanya sama, seperti chips and fries. Kalau chips di Inggris itu merupakan adalah kentang goreng, dan fries di US itu juga sama, kentang goreng. And then soccer and football. Football di Amerika itu lebih condong ke arah olahraga seperti rugby, and kalau soccer itu adalah olahraga sepak bola itu pada umumnya. Dan di UK sendiri itu dibilangnya football, bukan soccer, tapi football and soccer is the same. It has same meanings, but actually have different words. Jadi kesimpulannya, aksen itu merupakan salah satu mengapa dialek itu bisa berubah. Salah satu faktor dari terbentuknya suatu dialek itu accent. Jadi merupakan language variation juga. Okay, is that enough, Donan?
Okay. So accent is about sound. or pronunciation.
Yes.
And dialect is more fast. It's about grammar and vocabulary.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you, Ul.
Thank you very much, Donan. And next question will be answered by Fahmi Bayu Negara. Fahmi Bayu Negara, times is yours.
Well, thank you. I would like to answer this question. So the question was about this more specific example of what was it? Give specific differentiation of dialects such as pronunciation and word in the US. So the answer is actually quite correlated with Rizky, but it's more like in the US part. So as we can see to the maps, in the western part, that many words originally came from like Spanish, cowboy jargon, and even though like Native Americans, for the example like adobe, beer bust, belly up, bronco, buccaro, and then like hightail, Mustang, and so on. And then into the North Midland, in the Midland, but the northern part, it is like created as the people in Pennsylvania migrated westward, and influenced by the Scotch, Irish, German, and English quarter settler. So sometimes they call like donuts is belly sinkers, dog knobs, dunkers, and fat cakes. And then in the in the southern part of the Midland, it is where the area dominated by the Appalachian Mountains and the Ozark Mountains, where was originally settled by the Pennsylvania Dutch moving south from the North Midland areas, and the Scotch Irish moving west from Virginia. So usually the sound th, th at the end of the word or syllables is sometimes pronounced F. So, and there are, the word R is often left out of the sentences as they are in the Black English. And then an A or A is usually placed at the beginning of verb that ends with ing. And the G is dropped and O at the end of the word becomes or er. For example, like they are celebrating his birthday by going to see Old Yeller in the theater. So they are celebrating his birthday by going to see Old Yeller in the theater. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. And then there's also difference in the word in US, like when they refer to like the cart, grocery cart, they in the northeast part, especially in Connecticut and eastern Massachusetts, use carriage as the grocery cart. And in the south and some Midwest states, grocery shoppers might often use a buggy to refer the four-wheel cart. And then there's also lollipop. Lollipop appears to be more common in the Northwest, while sucker is more widely used in the South and Midwest. And as you can see in the map, you can see right now, like before has been, you see the picture before that, actually, this part, wait. The under the part of southern is used like more like you, y'all, like that. And then the top part is like using you guys. And then in the border between the both divided area, they mostly use like you all without being cut. And then in the Americans, the word Americans of highway is often used in only this part, as you can see in the map. And then this part use freeway. And the rest of them use both of them. And then also pronunciation of the northern New England and New York, maybe New York City, around the New York City, or here, they using like pronounce in other way. For example, like road here with the rhyme of hood, so it's pronounced root. But in the north part, they use like a rhyme of out, so they use like route. So I think that's all. Ade, is it clear enough?
Okay, Fahmi, that's a really detailed explanation. Thank you. So basically, it just depends on the place and the
Yes.
like how they're used to speaking the words, right? So yeah. Okay, thank you, Fahmi.
Thank you. Okay, Rizky, back to you.
All right, that's all from our presentation. And thank you for attending our presentation. Thank you for your attention too. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.